All right, let's dive into Exodus chapter 30. Think of this as a sacred blueprint. We're about to walk through a very specific set of instructions, not just for building things, but for building a bridge between the everyday world and the presence of the holy. The entire chapter boils down to this one big question. How do you take something ordinary, like wood or metal or even just money and oil, and make it sacred? Well, this chapter is the answer. It's a step-by-step guide on how holiness is built. So, our journey starts with the first holy object on the list, the altar of incense. And let me tell you, this is way more than just a piece of furniture. It's designed to be a constant fragrant prayer, literally rising up to heaven. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty verse by verse. Verse 1 kicks it off. God commands an altar for burning incense, made from acacia wood. Verse 2 gives the exact dimensions, a perfect square, about 1.5 feet wide and deep, and 3 feet tall, with horns sticking up from the corners, all carved from one single piece. Then verse 3 completely transforms it. The entire thing, the top, the sides, the horns, has to be covered in pure gold, with a gold molding all around it. Just imagine that shift from humble wood to gleaming gold. Verses 4 and 5 are all about practicality. 2 gold rings are to be placed under the molding on opposite sides. Why? To hold the poles, also made of acacia wood and covered in gold, so the whole thing can be carried when the people are on the move. Now, verse 6 is absolutely crucial. It's all about location, location, location. Where does this golden altar go? It's placed right in front of the veil, the curtain that separates everything from the Ark of the Covenant in the Holy of Holies. It's standing at the very edge of God's manifest presence, the exact spot where he promises to meet with his people. So what's it for? Verses 7 and 8 lay out this beautiful, constant ritual. Aaron is commanded to burn fragrant incense on it every single morning when he tends the lamps. Then, verse 8 says he has to do it again at twilight when he lights the lamps for the evening. It's a perpetual incense burning before the Lord, creating this constant aromatic cloud of prayer going up day in and day out. And this altar has a very, very specific job. Verse 9 lays down some seriously strict rules. You can't offer any unauthorized incense on it, and absolutely no burnt offerings, no grain offerings, and no drink offerings. This isn't the big altar for sacrifice out in the courtyard. This one's purpose is singular. It is reserved for the fragrance of prayer alone. Verse 10 really seals the deal on just how special this altar is. Once a year, on the Day of Atonement, Aaron is to take blood from the sin offering and put it on the horns of the altar to make atonement for it. This isn't a one-time thing. It's a ritual to be done for all generations to come, because, as the verse declares, it is most holy to the Lord. All right, now the instructions pivot. We're moving from a sacred object to a sacred act that involves every single person. The focus shifts from an altar to a census, and the price required for every soul. So verses 11 and 12 explain that when a census is taken, every person counted must pay a ransom for their life to the Lord. This is serious. It's to prevent a plague from breaking out among them. The idea here is that counting people is a big deal, and it requires this act of atonement. And verse 13 gives us the exact price, half a shekel. It's a small silver coin, but its purpose is huge. It's a ransom. Verse 14 makes it clear who has to pay, every man 20 years old or more. But then, verse 15 gives us this absolutely stunning principle of equality. It says, "The rich shall not give more, and the poor shall not give less than half a shekel." Think about that. When it comes to the ransom of a soul before God, your bank account means nothing. Every single life has the exact same value. It's a radical idea. So what happens to all these little silver coins? Verse 16 tells us, and it's incredible, this atonement money is to be used for the service of the tabernacle. It was literally used to make the silver sockets that form the foundation of the sanctuary. The ransom they paid for their lives became the very foundation they would worship on. How amazing is that? It was a permanent memorial for them. The instructions now shift again, and honestly, the tone gets a lot more serious. We're moving from construction and payment to the actual state of the priests who serve. And this next part, well, it's a matter of life and death. Okay, verses 17 and 18 command the creation of a bronze laver. Just picture a large, shimmering bronze basin with a bronze stand filled with water. Its placement is critical. It goes in the courtyard, right between the big altar of sacrifice and the entrance to the holy tent itself. And verse 19 is direct. Aaron and his sons must use it to wash their hands and their feet. And why is this washing so non-negotiable? Verse 20 lays it out with a chilling warning. Whenever the priests go into the tent or approach the altar to minister, they shall wash with water so that they may not die. The message couldn't be clearer. You cannot bring the dust and impurity of the common world into the presence of God's holiness. And just to make sure they get it, verse 21 repeats the command, making it a permanent law for all their descendants. So we've gone from purification with water to the next step, consecration with oil. And trust me, this is not just any oil. What we're about to see is a divine recipe, a fragrant blend designed to officially set apart everything it touches as holy. So verse 22 begins this new instruction. Then, verses 23 and 24 list these incredibly precious and exotic ingredients. We're talking 500 shekels of liquid myrrh, 250 of sweet-smelling cinnamon, 250 of aromatic cane, and another 500 shekels of cassia. Then, according to verse 25, a perfumer is to blend all of this into a hin of pure olive oil to create a sacred anointing oil, a unique and holy compound. So what's this oil for? Verses 26 through 30 give us the list, and it's everything. The tabernacle, the ark, the table and all its utensils, the lampstand and its utensils, the altar of incense, the altar of burnt offering with its utensils, and the laver with its base. You anoint them all to consecrate them, to make them most holy. And then, that very same oil is used to anoint Aaron and his sons, setting them apart for their sacred duty as priests. But with this kind of holiness comes a really strict warning. Verses 31 and 32 are crystal clear. This oil is to be God's holy anointing oil for all generations, and it shall not be poured on the body of an ordinary person. The command is absolute. This specific formula was exclusively for God's designated people and objects. It drew a tangible, fragrant line between the holy and the common. And the penalty for messing this up? Verse 33 spells it out, and it is severe. Anyone who copies this recipe for their own use or puts any of it on an unauthorized person, an outsider, shall be cut off from his people. Misusing what's holy means separating yourself from the holy community. That's how seriously God protects its sanctity. And that brings us right back to where we started, the altar of incense. We know how it's built, we know where it's placed. Now God gives the final, divine recipe, the specific incense that will create the very fragrance of holiness itself. Verse 34 lists the special ingredients, stacte, onycha, and galbanum. These are all aromatic resins, along with pure frankincense, and they're all to be used in equal parts. Then verse 35 instructs that it's to be blended by a perfumer into an incense that is salted, pure, and holy. Every single detail of its creation is sacred. And what about its final preparation? Verse 36 commands that some of this incense be beaten very fine, creating this incredibly delicate, ethereal powder. This powder is then placed before the Ark of the Testimony, right in that meeting place with God, ready to be burned on that golden altar. It is to be considered most holy to them. And just like the holy oil, this incense was completely exclusive. Verse 37 strictly forbids making any of it for personal use, just to enjoy the smell. And the chapter ends with this final, incredibly sober warning in verse 38. Whoever makes any like it to smell it shall be cut off from his people. It's a powerful final statement. It's the ultimate line in the sand drawn by a divine blueprint separating the sacred from the common.